Yeah, yeah. Ball so hard, you better believe me, it's scary. It's basketball at the bar with Calvin and Barry. So put a tip in the jar, cause these dudes can really fill it up. Whether it's buckets you need or just a beer in a cup. We're here for fresh conversations, got some delicious libations. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications. My boys got you covered like you being guarded by payers. From the glove to the claw and everyone else in between. Calvin and Barry got everything that you need. So sit back, relax, because we're starting the show. It's basketball at the bar, grab your drinks and let's go. Yeah. Grab a drink and let's go. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification. Calvin and Barry. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification. Let's get it.
What up, ballers? Welcome to Basketball at the Bar. Join us live for the best NBA podcast here on YouTube, where the takes are hot and the drinks are cold. There's no dress code, and you can take us wherever you go. So pull up a stool, drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe. This is Basketball at the Bar. Grab your drinks, and let's go. Calvin, it's Wednesday. It's hump day again. We got a ton of stuff to talk about, and we are just about a day and a half away from NBA free agency.
Officially, yes.
Yeah.
Even though you're already starting to hear a lot of things that are going to happen in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Very true. What's up, Progressive G? Good to see you here in the chat. Shout out to everybody else that's joining us. Please don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Also want to remind you all that we are giving away a $250 Fanatics gift card. If you have not already entered in, make sure you go and do that. All you need to do is go to the Basketball at the Bar YouTube page. You can search for Fanatics, or it should be posted up at the top. Watch that video. It's very short. Just follow the instructions, and you'll be entered in to win a $250 Fanatics gift card. So, Calvin, we have a ton of stuff to talk about today. We have some player team options. We have some trades. We have a buyout, some more rumors, some coaching information. Where would you like to start?
Oh, man, it doesn't matter.
All right.
Spin the wheel.
Let's give some updates on player and team options. So first off, Russell Westbrook officially decides to opt in to his last year with the Lakers. I think it's $47 million. He posted a video on his Instagram afterwards of singing. Seems to be very, very happy to be returning to the Lakers.
Well, I think I'd be very happy about $47 million. Doesn't matter where I'm playing.
Yes.
Because he might not be playing in LA still.
Very true. Anything else that you can deduct from this?
Just, I mean, similar to the Kyrie Irving situation, like, what are your other options here? You know, if you don't take that player option, there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to sign for anywhere near that same amount of money anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think Westbrook wanted to be in L.A. the whole time. He's from there. He grew up watching the Lakers. It's a pretty cut and dry decision in my mind for him.
Yes, very true. And as you mentioned, Kyrie Irving also opts into the final year of his deal, very similar to Russell Westbrook. So he will be returning to the Brooklyn Nets, at least for now. I read an article today that the team was very unhappy with Kyrie Irving, not only his stance on the vaccines, but his the way he treated his teammates and coaching staff and stuff like that. So apparently he's on a short leash here, could potentially get traded. But I want to hear from you, Calvin. Who do you think is more likely to remain on their team throughout the year, Kyrie Irving or Russell Westbrook?
Well, I think they're actually linked together right now. I mean, especially because John Wall has been bought out, which we'll get to as well. That trade option isn't available. To trade either one of these guys, there really aren't many deals left that will work financially and get back what, you know, potentially the team could want in return. So I think their fates are very intertwined at this point, but I will say Westbrook probably has a better chance overall just because the Nets really don't want him there. They don't want Kyrie Irving in the building at all, it seems like.
Yeah, it's really quite unfortunate. We will see what happens in this situation. We will continue to keep you posted. Kevin Durant's the real guy that I'm watching out of this whole situation, right? Because if KD and Westbrook get swapped, does KD want to be there? Is he going to demand a trade to somewhere else? We're not really quite sure. Last week I I speculated on a potential landing spot for Kevin Durant, one that he's won a couple of championships with, and a team that has a ton of, trade assets. But we will see what happens there. In other news, James Harden officially declines his player option for the Philadelphia 76ers. He is said to do this to provide extra salary cap flexibility for the team to basically add on players, and then he will renegotiate and re-sign a contract to remain with the Sixers. What are your thoughts here, Cal?
It's a smart move. I mean, I think it's good for both parties. James is obviously coming off of a rough postseason. That might have given Philadelphia some worry or precaution in signing him to a max deal. This works out better for both parties. James gets to remain with the team, which I think he wants to do ultimately, and they also get to look to improve the team so that they don't fall flat in the playoffs again next year.
Bradley Beal's doing pretty much the exactly same thing here. He has also declined his player option. He's officially free. He could leave the Wizards if he wants. But what do you think about this situation? Same thing as the Harden deal?
I don't think this is the same thing as the Harden deal for a couple of reasons. Number one, Bradley Beal has said earlier this summer or earlier this year, recently, that his decision this offseason about where to play next year is going to be based on where he thinks he can win.
He's going to the Warriors.
I don't think that's in Washington.
Okay.
Also, they just drafted a shooting guard with the 10th pick in this year's draft, Johnny Davis, who you would expect to be the replacement eventually, if not immediately, for Bradley Beal. So this doesn't feel necessarily like the same situation where I'm just going to opt out, restructure the deal, and hopefully we can make the team better sort of a thing.
So you think he's out?
I'm leaning that direction. The only reason I'm not all in on that is because I felt like Bradley Beal was going to leave the Wizards 6 or 7 times already, and he hasn't, and he's said every single time I want to be here, I want to stay in Washington.
Yeah.
So I'm leaving that door open slightly just because of his track record, previous history, and the things that he's said. But I think that this feels different than the James Harden situation.
What's up, Patrick? Good to see you. Thanks for joining in. Calvin and I are doing wonderful. It's Wednesday. We're here in Maui. It's only 1 p.m., and it's a beautiful sunny day outside. I'm heading to the beach after this show. That is for sure.
You're very lucky.
Based on what you just said, I feel like this is the same exact Bradley Beal. And that's because I was in the same boat as you, right? That I thought this guy was going to leave 5 or 6 times already, and he just continues to stay. So I'm the guy at the blackjack table. The dealer is bust 20 times in a row, and I'm going all in here because the dealer has to bust again, right? So I think Bradley Beal stays. I think he signs a humongous contract with the Wizards. Not saying he's going to play out that entire contract with them, but I think he's on the Wizards next season.
Yeah, we shall see.
In Kings news, the Kings extend their offer, or actually their team option, on Trey Lyles, so he will return to the Sacramento Kings next season. Good news for the Kings, right?
Yeah, I think this is really good news. I mean, this is power forward's a position that they're, thin at overall, or they have a lot of question marks. They just drafted Keegan Murray with the 4th pick. Trey Lyles, not, a all-star level talent for him to play behind or learn from, but a veteran who I think has, some similar aspects of his game to Keegan Murray's. He'd be a good person to learn from, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. I like him a lot. I think he's a good piece for that team, and he doesn't make a lot of money either. So, and they need bigs, which is definitely something you need to win in this league. Breaking news here, the Hornets extend qualifying offers to Miles Bridges and Cody Martin here, making them both restricted free agents. We'll talk about that here in a second. Also, the Trailblazers extend a qualifying offer to Anthony Simons, also making him a restricted free agent as well. And Taurean Prince agrees to a 2-year extension with the Minnesota Timberwolves. All right, let's talk about some trades here. Wizards officially trade KCP and Ish Smith to Denver for Barton and Morris. What does this mean for the two teams? And what does this mean for Bradley Beal?
Well, I think it's open to interpretation what it means for Bradley Beal, as we've kind of already discussed here. I don't really know who wins this trade. Like, I don't know necessarily what it does for either team. I like KCP. He was really instrumental, in the Lakers winning a title a few years ago.
Oh, he was so
really
hot from
good
three.
outside. Yeah, really great outside shooter. Maybe been a little more consistent than Will Barton, over the past couple of years. Barton's missed a bunch of games due to injury. So just a changing of the guard here. Like, I don't think that this – I'm not sure I can really pick a winner of this deal necessarily, other than just to say Ish Smith, this is an NBA record. This is his 13th team that he will have played for in his career.
That's wild. And I think I see this move as Denver is adding a little bit more experience to their roster and adding a guy like KCP. They haven't had much championship experience on that roster, if any at all. So they at least add a guy here with a ring. Great move for the Denver Nuggets, in my opinion. Well, it looks like the Knicks are finally tired of Nerlens Noel and Trey Burks. They are Alex Burks. They were shipped out to Detroit in pretty much a salary dump move. Detroit picked up these guys for basically nothing. This clears room for the Knicks to have some cap space. I know there's
$19 million.
I know there's a point guard that they've been talking about. We'll talk about that here in a second. But what do you think about the addition of Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks to the Detroit Pistons?
I think it's awesome. I'm ready. It's very early. There's a lot more that's going to happen in
Calvin's picking
NBA
Detroit
offseason
to win the title.
But no, I'm picking Detroit and Dallas as the head and shoulders winners of the offseason so far. Like, these two teams are absolutely killing it right now.
Yeah.
You get a nice young big man in Jalen Duren from Memphis, who probably should have been a top 10 pick, ends up falling out of the top 10. You still trade for him. They end up with two great young rookies in this draft class. Now you get a guy in Nerlens Noel who can be one of those mentors for Duren. Alec Burks is another very capable wing player that can come off the bench and provide shooting and scoring for you. Like, this is a really solid move for a team that's already made a ton of good moves this offseason.
Yeah, I'm not going to throw the Mavs up there, but I think Detroit by far has won the offseason. We'll see what happens with a guy like, DeAndre Ayton and what this means for him.
He's also linked to Detroit.
Maybe he's not going to
even
Detroit now.
Miles Bridges was linked to Detroit.
Yeah.
Like, everybody all of a sudden wants to go there.
When you got a ton of cap space and a bunch of young guys, people want to play there. In other news, the Spurs officially trade their point guard in Dejounte Murray to Atlanta for a package including Danilo Gallinari and a few draft picks. I think it's a 2023 first round, a 2025 first round, a pick swap, and I think one more pick in there as well. This is a strange move. I did not think the Spurs were going to move on from Dejounte Murray. I saw no reason for them to move on, yet they did it anyways. They're bringing in draft picks. What the hell's going on here?
I'm not really sure. I'm more surprised at the deal they actually decided to do for Murray, especially when you heard they were originally asking for 4 first-round picks in return plus a player. Now, obviously, most teams aren't going to bite at that, so you have to meet somewhere in the middle. But the fact that the Spurs didn't want or didn't get John Collins back in return for this. Instead, they get Gallinari, who doesn't, to me, fit what the Spurs are now trying to do. This guy's much older. This roster is mostly young, like rookies or second-year players. They just added 3 more first-round picks. Like, that doesn't equate to me. So I'm a little confused by what San Antonio accepted in this deal, but
I mean, I think if San Antonio wanted John Collins, they could have easily got him. So this signals to me that they did not want John Collins,
which again is strange to me. I don't understand. Gallinari is a very stereotypical Spurs player in my opinion. He maybe shoots a few more threes than the team traditionally does, but he's just kind of fits that type of mold to me. However, he makes a lot of money. Like I said, he's already on, in the twilight years maybe of his career. It just doesn't seem to match the same direction the team is going, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you could maybe even say the same thing for a guy like John Collins. As young as he is, the Spurs seem like they're going into full rebuild mode here. They're just going after draft picks. Yeah. I think they picked up like 2 unprotected draft picks, which are really rare in today's game. Like, we see teams fight to, we want a top 3 protected or top 1 protected. They got some unprotected first-round picks here in this deal. Yeah. So they're hitting the full reset button. What does this mean for Atlanta? Do you like the Murray combination with Trae Young?
I do, potentially. I mean, this is an incredibly fast backcourt. Murray adds some strengths that Trae Young doesn't have. Really solid on-ball defender. He's a guy that can take a lot of the pressure off Trae Young in terms of handling the ball, running the offense, playmaking, things like that. So, and for Atlanta right now, you still got your starting front court intact at the moment with Collins and Capella. And DeAndre Hunter presumably coming back to play that 3 spot. So I like this move for Atlanta.
Yeah, I also want to mention the Gallinari's contract for next season is partially guaranteed, so maybe the Spurs just traded for him and they're gonna buy him out or cut him. I think the real, loser here would be Bogdan Bogdanović, right? He was their free agent acquisition
or
just
Kevin Huerter,
a couple seasons ago.
Yeah.
Is he the 6th man on this team now?
I'm not sure. As we've talked about Atlanta a lot on previous shows, their whole roster is built with a bunch of wing players that shoot a ton of threes. Bogdanović is one of those guys. Kevin Huerter's probably now going back to the bench. So I don't know who the 6th man is on this team.
Yeah, I mean, if they start DeAndre Hunter at the 3,
which I think you have to,
then that means you got Kevin Huerter coming off the bench, just entering in the new contract, 4-year deal. He's making $14.5 million, and then you have Bogdanović, who's making $18 million as well, and he's got a player option for the season after that. So you could have both of those guys coming off the bench the next 2 seasons making over $30 million.
Yeah, well, strange. Clearly, I think Atlanta is still a team to watch here for the rest of the month of July, probably. What are they going to do with John Collins? If they move him, maybe they decide to go smaller, start DeAndre Hunter at the 4, which opens up a spot for you to play Huerter or Bogdanović in the starting lineup, or maybe they're going to look to move one of or both of those guys as well.
Yeah, Progressive G said Kings should bring back Bogdanović. I'd definitely be interested in something like that. However, what are you going to trade, right? Like Harrison Barnes, maybe the salary matches up if you're trading for a guy like John Collins, but then you got to send another $18 million out, which is a lot of money. That's basically what I think Sabonis is making at this point. Yeah. So you'd have to send out a ton of money. But the Hawks are definitely making some moves here. They are one of the most active teams so far this offseason. And I do expect John Collins to get moved here. Do you?
I do, yeah.
I don't think they want him there.
I think it's probably a mutual split at this point. He's already said he's unhappy with his role there, and it seems like Atlanta is starting the process of, moving in another direction. So,
yep. We will see what happens in that situation. We will monitor it, and we will keep you informed. In other news, we've seen our first buyout of the offseason, and it's John Wall. No surprise here. Didn't play with the Rockets last season. He is now reportedly going to join the LA Clippers. I do have to mention on last week's show, we talked about the Clippers and what they needed, what their biggest need was. You and I both agreed it was a point guard, so we can pat ourselves on the back there. Do you like John Wall joining the Clippers, and what does he bring to LA?
I like John Wall joining the Clippers if he's going to play. Like, this dude just hasn't played a lot of games,
so he's
fresh. In the past 4 years. He should be, but how fresh is he? I don't know. If he does come back healthy and plays, let's say we'll aim low, like 40 to 50 games even.
Okay.
You have to like this team. They're bringing back Zubats as well, so they're kind of doubling down on the lineup that they had going into last year. They want to re-sign Nicholas Batum, who's going to be a free agent as well. They're not going to pick up the option on him for now to try to hopefully re-sign him for a better deal. I like this team a lot. Like, John Wall is, when healthy, one of the premier point guards in the league.
Yeah.
He can really bring a lot to this team. And he's an underrated defender as well. And you've already got perhaps the best two wing defenders in the league on your team. That's going to make it really tough to score on this team.
Yeah, I actually like this addition a lot. I think the ceiling for this team is an NBA championship with these three guys. I'd say John Wall is the third best player on this team at this point, right? I know we haven't seen him in a year and a half or so, but I think that he is the third best player on this team. And I think that what this team really needs from the point guard position is a solid three-point shooter. Hopefully John Wall, while he's been out these few years, he's been continuing to work on his three-point shot. He wasn't a horrible three-point shooter late in his career in Washington. He was making it pretty effectively. But as guys age, and they lose speed, which was his number one attribute, if they're able to add that three-point shot or just get consistently better every year at shooting the three ball, they age very well. Now, I don't know if he's done that or not, but if he did or has been doing that, I think this is a huge move for the Clippers, and I expect them to be in the Western Conference Finals, potentially NBA Finals. However, that being said, their three best players have all missed at least a season in the NBA dealing with injuries, right? We just missed Kawhi Leonard last season. John Wall missed last season, plus he's missed multiple other seasons due to injury. Paul George missed a full season after the injury in the Olympics, stuff like that. So
freak accident.
The ceiling is very high. The floor is very low for this team for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will disagree with you a little bit on, I don't think John Wall needs to hit that high of a percentage from three. We're already talking about one of the best three-point shooting teams in the league. Luke Kennard led the league in three-point percentage last year. They may end up losing him, but you've still got a ton of guys that shoot it really well. I mean, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are definitely no slouch when it comes to three-point shooting. Norman Powell is now on this team. You've got Robert Covington. Reggie Jackson's been an improved three-point shooter as well. This team has a ton of shooting already on it.
Yeah, it does. I'm just saying to make up for his loss in speed and some of the other things in his game. But we will see.
He's
what
also
happens.
never played with the offensive caliber players as Paul George and Kawhi Leonard.
Bradley Beal?
He's a great player, but Bradley Beal isn't better by himself than Paul George and Kawhi Leonard.
No, but I'm just saying offensively, he's capable of putting up numbers like Paul George, not Paul Wall. Paul George,
not Paul Wall. Yes, that's right. But I'm just saying having those two guys on the floor with John Wall should open things up a lot more for him. So even if he's maybe lost a step, John Wall is still very fast, even for a guy that's lost a step and had a couple injuries. I think he's going to be able to take advantage of that for sure.
What is your, estimation on next season and how it goes for the Clippers?
Well, of course, it's dependent on health, right? We don't know we have two big question marks here. How healthy and how good is John Wall going to be, and how healthy and how good is Kawhi Leonard going to be? We still haven't seen him play in over a year either.
And Paul George, the dude has had so many shoulder injuries.
And elbow. And yes, he's had a lot of injuries as well. They're like a couple teams or a few teams in this league. They're completely dependent on how healthy they're going to be to determine how good they are. But like you said, if they're all even close to the old forms of themselves or what we expect from them, this could easily be one of the better teams, like one of the 5 best teams in the NBA.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We will see what happens. Well, it's official. The Jazz hire their head coach in Will Hardy, and they also hire an associate GM in David Fisdale. What are your thoughts on these moves? Does this help the Jazz at all? And is the next domino to fall Rudy Gobert?
I think Rudy Gobert is the next domino to fall. And yeah, I would say this helps the Jazz as well. Will Hardy's one of the top assistants in the league right now. I was surprised that he didn't get as many interviews or make it to the final round of some of these earlier jobs that were open. So I'm happy for him. I think the Jazz ended up making a good decision here based on the future, a young guy that they can bring along with the team as it goes in a new direction. And, I think David Fizdale is a very well-respected guy as well, and that front office has a lot of really, really well-respected basketball minds in it now to go along with Danny Ainge and Fizdale. So
I see the D-Wade connection here, right? Dwayne Wade just became a partial owner of the Jazz. He's got Fizdale connections from Miami, so maybe they made some connections there. But I think these are great, starting points for the Jazz, because when we talked about them a few weeks ago, they have a ton of things to try and work out this offseason. Let's talk about some rumors here. And I guess we'll go right into the Rudy Gobert thing, since he's the next domino to fall here for the Jazz. But according to multiple sources, your Chicago Bulls, Calvin, are the odds-on favorite to land Rudy Gobert. Do you like this? Do you dislike this? And what do you expect to ultimately happen with Rudy?
I do like this for Chicago. We talked about this, I don't know, like a couple weeks ago, it feels like, when this story first came out. And I had been on record saying that a lot of teams should not trade for Rudy Gobert. The Bulls, I think, are not one of those teams. I think this would be a really great move if they could pull it off, depending on what they have to give up to get him. But as I mentioned before, one of the biggest weaknesses for Chicago last year was their interior defense. They played a relatively smaller lineup most of the time, even though they had Vucevic at the center. The rest of the team was really small, and they had very little resistance when it came to a team's attacking them at the basket. So rebounding, rim protection, this would be really great for them. And it's a situation where Bulls have plenty of scorers on this team, especially if they do end up re-signing Levine, which it sounds like will happen. Offense is not something that they necessarily need. So it seems like a perfect match here. But the Timberwolves are also a team that are in pursuit of Rudy Gobert as well, and I think it also makes sense for them. Keep in mind, or don't rule them out. They're still a dark horse here.
Yeah, just looking here at the Bulls' salary cap situation, Zach LaVine, he is a free agent. He can sign with whatever team he chooses to, but it could be in their best, efforts to make a trade for a guy like Rudy Gobert before they bring in Zach LaVine, because they can go over the salary cap to re-sign Zach LaVine. I got the NBA trade machine pulled up here just to see what it looks like salary-wise to bring in a guy like Rudy Gobert. He's scheduled to make about $35 million. You'd have to send out Alonzo Ball, a Jones Jr., and a Caruso to get anywhere close to matching salary here. Other than that...
You're not going to try to include Vucevic in that instead of one of those other guys?
You could include Vucevic if you want, but I don't know. What are your thoughts? Are you including Vucevic in this deal?
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to start him and Gobert together?
No, I don't think that makes a lot of sense.
So let me adjust this here. So if I were to take Lonzo out, we could add in Vucevic here, 24 million, and then Caruso and Jones Jr. Has the Bulls winning 6 more games and the Jazz losing 7 more games. Maybe you throw some picks in here.
Probably going to have to or something. That seems fairly reasonable. I mean, as a Bulls fan, I would not like to lose Caruso, but in order to get Gobert, you're going to probably have to give up something or someone that you don't want to lose.
Do you think this trade will end up eventually happening, or where do you see Gobert next season?
It's a really tough question. Really tough. I think it's going to come down to how desperate a team is to have him, because you're going to have to give up a lot, not just the package, but the fact that he makes that much money in return is going to cost you in the future, right?
Yep.
Luxury tax, all that stuff, to be a competitive team. And maybe the Warriors are starting a new wave of how you organize your salary cap, and teams are just going to say, we have to spend a ton of money to be competitive enough to win.
Yeah. Maybe. We'll see. We know inflation is dominating everything else in the economy. Why not the NBA, right? Why not?
Yeah.
I also read an article this morning that the NBA salary cap is expected to increase this offseason. I don't know the exact number at the moment. I want to say 123 million, but it's definitely on its way back up since we saw it decline the past 2 years due to the COVID pandemic. All right, let's talk about a few more rumors here. Jalen Brunson to the Knicks. Apparently the Knicks are the favorite to sign Jalen Brunson. He's an unrestricted free agent. Looks like the Mavericks are potentially going to lose out on him for nothing. Not that they weren't able to make some good moves this offseason. This is kind of one of the reasons why I didn't have them up there with the Pistons. I love the addition of Christian Wood, but losing Jalen Brunson for nothing, I think, is a tough pill to swallow for Dallas.
Yeah, it is. I have them really high on my list. Obviously the Christian Wood deal is great. They're also rumored to be after some players that we're going to talk about in a second here, to where if they can land them, not only are they adequate replacements for Jalen Brunson, to me it just all the moves that they're making right now in Dallas are really solid, I would say. They know that they didn't have enough money to re-sign Brunson. The Knicks are going to throw the kitchen sink at him. It's rumored it could be up to $110 million for 4 years. And the Knicks are 100% all in on this.
Yeah, the Knicks are definitely making some moves here. We thought Julius Randle was going to be the guy, the odd man out. It seems like he is potentially staying at this point, and they're continuing to build around him. So good for Knicks fans. Maybe you guys will finally have 3 consecutive years in the playoffs. We'll see. We will definitely see here. But Jalen Brunson could be a huge addition to the Knicks. Next up, Malik Monk is willing to take less money to stay with the LA Lakers. You and I agree that this was the bargain of last year's
the
offseason,
best value
right?
contract in the NBA.
He absolutely killed it for the Lakers. They don't have a lot of money left because they are paying a guy like LeBron and Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook
just opted in for $47 million.
So Malik Monk could potentially stay with the Lakers. What do you see a contract looking like for him, and do you think he will ultimately stay?
Yeah, I think he will ultimately stay. This is the LeBron James effect, in my opinion. You get guys like this who everybody wants to win, right? And a lot of times people in their career, when they play alongside the best or one of the best players in the NBA, they realize how fortunate they are and how great of an opportunity they have to keep winning. So, some guys care more about securing a better financial status, a bigger contract. Other guys care more about just playing on a competitive team, whatever that looks like, and it seems that Monk is in that boat at this point.
Yeah, he's still very, very young at only 24 years old. The Lakers better be hoping that he wants to re-sign because they only have 7 guys here under contract for next season. One of those is partially guaranteed in Stanley Johnson. You have Gabriel at like $1.8 million, a player option. A team option, and then Russell Westbrook that just opted in, and Kendrick Nunn can opt in as well. So they definitely need to add some more guys to fill out that roster. If Malik Monk is willing to take a discount to stay in LA, great news for the Lakers and great news for Lakers fans because three-point shooting is very important to have next to a guy like LeBron James and a guy like Russell Westbrook.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, the Hornets apparently are unlikely to offer Miles Bridges a max deal. And Detroit are the favorites to sign him. When we started the show today, I mentioned that they have officially offered him the qualifying offer, making him a restricted free agent, and the Hornets can match any contract offer that he is given. However, will they do it, right, is a whole nother situation. So now it's on Bridges to go out and on his agent to go out and get all these contract offers. He could potentially get a max offer from a team like Detroit or somebody else that has some money. And then it's up to the Hornets on whether they choose to match that or let him walk for nothing or try and work out some kind of sign and trade.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this situation?
It's I think it's going to play out not exactly how Miles Bridges maybe hoped it would, but I think he's going to ultimately be the winner here. Like, I don't see him staying in Charlotte for much longer. There's definitely going to be somebody that pays him, whether it's or wants to pay him, whether it's Detroit or another team. And Detroit makes a lot of sense. He's from Michigan. He went to Michigan State. A lot of connections there, obviously.
Yep.
He would welcome coming back home and playing, in D-Town.
Did the Gordon Hayward situation screw it up for Miles Bridges and the Hornets?
I think it might have.
He's making $30 million next season and $31.5 the year after that.
Yeah.
This could be why they can't afford him.
Yes. Yeah, I think ultimately it might be. And it's, I don't know if it's necessarily just Gordon Hayward, though. Charlotte has made some pretty strange personnel decisions, for a number of years. Like they've just been kind of spinning the wheels, for the past 10 seasons, basically. And now they finally get a guy who had a phenomenal year last year, bet on himself.
A young guy.
Seems to be, doing and saying all of the right things. I know he had that unfortunate issue in Atlanta at the end of the season, which maybe was a minor setback for him with the team. But I think overall that hasn't probably changed the overall league's perception of him. Like this seems to me like a situation with, you've got a guy in LaMelo Ball, who's the future of this team. Miles Bridges could be his running mate for the next 5 to 8 years. Like it should be, I think, a simple decision to be made here. But I think Charlotte is going to lose out on another one.
Yeah, I agree. And it's kind of something we've seen pretty consistently, right? Like we just talked about Malik Monk. He just left Charlotte a year ago. Young guy, drafted by them. You look at a guy like Kemba Walker, who's definitely fallen off lately.
Yeah.
Charlotte refused to pay him. Maybe that was the right move. Maybe it wasn't. But it's unfortunate for Charlotte and for MJ. You got to keep some of these good young players when you do hit on guys. I would much rather have a 24-year-old Miles Bridges at $30 million than a 32-year-old Gordon Hayward.
Yeah. And the craziest thing of the whole situation is even with Gordon Hayward's age and contract, you probably could have traded him.
Yeah.
At some point. Maybe still even can.
Still can.
So
it's not over yet.
It's not.
They could potentially trade Hayward and bring back Bridges by offering the qualifying offer today. They are in the driver's seat.
That's true.
So we will definitely see what happens. But a tough speed bump here for this team because they're definitely on their way up. They hit on LaMelo Ball. They hit on Miles Bridges. They've had a bunch of these guys. P.J. Washington. I think James Bouknight is going to be a great player. So at some point, you just kind of got to open up your checkbook and say, okay, the scouts did their job. The front office did their job. We brought in these guys. Now we just need to keep them here and get some chemistry and some consistency. We will see what happens. But if I'm Charlotte, I'm doing whatever I can to keep Miles Bridges. I really am.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, and the last topic of the day, the Dallas Mavericks. You want to talk about two more moves that they are, estimated to make here in free agency?
Yeah, well, one of them sounds like more of a done deal than the other one. We talked about Jalen Brunson. The Mavericks, I think, at this point are expecting to lose him to free agency, so they've got to turn their eyes onto who they could replace him with. And it looks like they might go with both an offensive and defensive replacement for him. That would be Goran Dragic, formerly of the Brooklyn Nets most recently, and then Gary Payton II. They're rumored to have already started to work out a deal for Dragic, and they will be pursuing Gary Payton hard in free agency as well.
Wow.
And it goes back to what I was saying earlier. If they're able to pull off those two moves, you're probably going to be able to sign both those guys for less than what the Knicks are going to pay Jalen Brunson for. I think it would be tremendous
net positive,
to fill out the roster with both those guys.
Net positive for the Mavericks. They continue to stack W's this offseason, how much better of a team do you think they will actually be as opposed to last year? Do you think they get further in the playoffs?
That's so hard to say because they made it all the way to the Western Conference Finals this year. But look, I think just like, we talked a lot about Boston while they were making their run, saying they're in a position to be contenders for to make the NBA Finals for a long time to come now. I think you have to start mentioning Dallas in the same breath.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that Luka Doncic guy is pretty good. And you mentioned the LeBron James effect earlier. You got to think that Luka's going or starting to create that effect around him. I'm really excited to see how he is going to fit with Christian Wood. But, yeah, great offseason so far for the Mavs. I wish Mike was here in the chat so we could give a shout-out to him. But I think it's time here to open it up to Q&A. Unless you have anything else to mention, any other news, I can refresh my NBA News app here.
Well, there is one thing that we haven't talked about yet, which I know Kings fans are going to be it's a very sensitive subject here, and we'll be doing a Royal Rebounds podcast tomorrow, so we'll talk more in depth about it, but the Kings are not, at the moment, going to offer the qualifying offer to Dante DiVincenzo.
Yeah, interesting move there. I don't know if this is a salary cap move or not. They still can re-sign him. They can still go over the salary cap to re-sign him and bring him in. All they're doing is they're making him not a restricted free agent, and they're getting rid of that salary cap hold that would be there during the first week or 2 weeks of free agency.
Yeah.
So either there's a guy that they're targeting in free agency that they're like, we need more salary cap space. They've talked it out with DiVincenzo, or they've just agreed to part ways here, which for me seems unlikely.
I agree.
Considering they just traded for him and they've tried to trade for him twice already.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen there?
I really don't know. I think I'm leaning towards, what you're saying about there being a bigger move or more moves in the works behind the scenes that we don't see or hear right now, whether it's John Collins or somebody else. I hope that that's the case because I still have trust and believe in Monty McNair that he knows what he's trying to do or has a plan that he's trying to work out here. But from the outside looking in now, going into the draft, after having the draft fall out or happen the way it did, where they didn't really add any other assets, you thought maybe they would pick up extra picks or another player. They end up doing none of that and just taking one guy. Everybody wanted the John Collins trade to fall through, maybe on draft day or draft night. That didn't happen either. And now you're hearing that you may lose DiVincenzo for nothing. It sounds like you're going in the absolute wrong direction. But I think there is a bigger picture here at work.
And you just had a chance to draft a star shooting guard to replace him just a week ago. So it's interesting. I want to give a shout out to Frankie Cardicelli. He's been posting on Twitter and Facebook a lot about this. He says that he thinks something is in the works here and just be patient. So we will stay, paying attention to this issue and see what happens. I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm a little stressed about the Kings right now.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump here into Q&A. So if you guys have questions, go ahead and drop them here in the chat, and we got answers. I see a couple here from Progressive G, so we'll jump right into it. Calvin, first off, is Detroit a playoff team next year?
Playoff team, that's tough. They still could potentially make, one or two more moves here that are going to strengthen the team. Maybe they end up grabbing DeAndre Ayton or they end up with Miles Bridges or something like that. They've got a definite chance, I would say. I feel like play-in for sure is a very realistic possibility for this team. You look at the teams that were in the play-in last year, Charlotte, Atlanta, Cleveland. I think Cleveland will be at or better than what they were last year. Atlanta is a big question mark right now with their new toy and Dejounte Murray. But the Hornets, especially if Miles Bridges leaves and it maybe ends up in Detroit, that could easily be a flip there for me. So I do think Detroit's going to be much, much better than they were last year. Playoff team is still a little bit of a stretch, I would say. But
yeah, it's very tough. For me, it ultimately comes down to, does Cade Cunningham take the next step and lead this team? But as far as making the playoffs,
they're so young too, right?
Yeah.
Like they've got a ton of talent.
Yeah.
But are they going to make that quick of a jump that fast? You know, I don't know.
I think they're a few years away. And just like you mentioned, looking here at the standings, they got to leapfrog 4 teams just to be eligible for the play-in.
Right.
That's the Pacers, the Wizards, the Knicks, and the Hornets.
Which can easily be done.
None of those teams have had a stellar offseason so far.
No.
You know, you'd say that maybe if the Knicks get Jalen Brunson, maybe that makes them a little bit better. We'll see what happens with the Hornets and Bridges.
But like you're saying, even if they leapfrog all 4 of those teams, that still only puts you in 10th.
Yes.
So there's still a lot more work to be done. But
little early for the Detroit Pistons. That is for sure. Progressive G also says, what's the latest with the Kings and John Collins? That is the question of the day. That's the question of the week. That's the question of the year, Progressive G. I have no idea what is going on with the Kings and John Collins. They have been very, very quiet. I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad. But I do want to throw out there that the Kings are officially the oldest team in the NBA. And next year, 2023, will be 100 years for them.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about their average roster.
No. I'm saying franchise.
Okay.
They started in 1923 as the Rochester Seagrams. 2023, 100 years of professional basketball.
100 years.
That's wild. That is absolutely
one championship.
Wild. Yeah. Did you hear that Indiana offered the Kings Chris Duarte and the number 6 pick for the number 4th pick? Thoughts on that? I did not hear that.
I did not hear that.
And I think that they should have taken that deal if that was a real deal. But then again, they seem to absolutely love Keegan Murray. They think that Keegan Murray is the best player available at 4. I bet if you asked Monty, he'd probably say that he thought Keegan Murray was probably the best, or if not one of the best players in this entire draft. So that could make sense why he didn't want to move down. But if it's me, I think Duarte had an amazing season last year. He's still young. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, it certainly sounds like a good deal, right? I think if I'm trying to put myself in Monty McNair's shoes, he probably, I would guess, just wasn't sure enough that Keegan Murray would still be there at 6, because you have to assume that for Indiana to jump up to 4, they probably want to take either Murray or Ivy, right?
Yeah.
And then Detroit's probably going to take whoever the other one doesn't take at 5, right? Or like that's your thought process. So maybe he just didn't pull the trigger because, again, he just wasn't confident enough that Keegan Murray would still be there, and that was the ultimate goal for them, clearly, was to draft him.
Yeah, and if you honestly think that Keegan Murray is the best player available and he fills a position of need that the Kings needed, and he's the most NBA-ready player, which the Kings want to compete and win now, is it worth giving up that for a question mark in pick 6 and a guy like Chris Duarte? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Making that move would have made a lot more sense today when you hear that they're not going to offer DiVincenzo.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, okay, well, we just picked up Chris Duarte, so obviously we can cut our losses there. But, yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting.
Maybe the Kings make a run after a guy like Malik Monk. Maybe they do. We talked about how he's willing to take less to stay with the Lakers. But, hey, if the Kings come in and they're like, hey, we'll pay you, we'll make you a starter, and you get to play with your college teammate in De'Aaron Fox. That could be a good move. If you're the Kings, would you be, like, let's say they cost the same. Who would you rather have, Monk or DiVincenzo?
I like both of them for different reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about the Kings again, defense is my number one priority. Malik Monk is a good player, but he's not the defender that DiVincenzo
or
is.
rebounder. But much better. At least last season was a much better three-point shooter.
Yeah.
Which we also talked about could be issues with this team when your first best player or second, however you want to rank Fox and Sabonis, are not, exceptional three-point shooters. Right. So interesting situation. John Collins as well, if he ends up getting added to this roster. I think for the Kings, we're all kind of just sitting back here with all these questions, and there will be a point where, like, we thought it was going to be the draft, where once something happened, the dominoes were going to start to fall. I don't think we've seen that yet. So maybe it's on Friday, maybe it's late tomorrow, but I think we'll start to see one domino fall, and it'll kind of start this effect, and we'll see the rest of the roster fill out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Go ahead and post them here in the chat. Anything else you want to discuss today, Calvin?
We've covered a lot of ground already. There's going to be so much more that happens here in a very short amount of time. There's a lot of big name players that are still available.
Yep. Yeah, we didn't even mention Zach LaVine at all. And he's probably the biggest name in here. We barely mentioned
Definitely
DeAndre Ayton, who's one of the big names as well. I want to remind you all, Calvin and I will be live tomorrow on this channel and on Royal Rebounds. We will also be live on Friday covering NBA free agency, giving all our takes, our thoughts on all that stuff. It's going to be a busy couple days here. You guys thought the draft was busy. Wait until free agency starts. It's 24/7. So it's going to be a fun couple days here. I also want to remind you all, please hit that like button. Please hit the subscribe button. We will be here as much as we can covering all that is the NBA. Progressive G says, love this time of year. NBA free agency is always interesting. Yeah, we got the draft, we got free agency, we got trades, we got signing of coaches and all this stuff. So the NBA landscape is being mowed right now, or being remodeled. So we will see what happens. Real quick, Calvin, from everything that you've seen so far, and I know it's extremely early, but I read an article this morning saying that the Lakers are actually the betting favorite to win the title next season. Who do you think is going to be in the finals next year?
Oh, man. Wow. Gosh, I don't even know if I can put together an answer right now. I mean, the Western Conference is going to be so different because you're going to get so many teams back to, like, full strength health-wise. Clippers, Nuggets.
Yeah.
You know, you could even include the Lakers, who battled injuries for most of the year. The Pelicans. So that one is tough. And then the Eastern Conference, we saw how much competition there was within the top six, even, 7 seeds.
Yeah.
Brooklyn was even the number one team in the East for a while last year.
Play-in teams were all over 500.
Yeah,
or maybe one of them wasn't over 500.
So it's Progressive G says Sacramento and Detroit. That would be something.
I would love that. Progressive G, if that happens, I will get a Sacramento tattoo on my chest. I would love that. And Calvin will get a Detroit tattoo.
No, man, no, don't include me in that.
If they make the finals.
No, I can't do that. I can't do that. As a Bulls fan, I cannot have a Detroit Pistons tattoo. Just can't.
I think it's also very hard to tell, but I'm just going to go with a rematch from last year.
Really?
Say Warriors Celtics.
Wow.
But ultimately, I think it's basically the Celtics, the Bucks.
Yeah, I was
maybe
going to say
Sixers,
I'm not ready to
maybe the
to
Heat
say Milwaukee
are your
is out,
teams.
And their run or whatever is over here. I still think they're when healthy again. They need to get Middleton back to full strength, and if they get that, like they're easily the team that could come out of the East to me.
Where do you think the Nets rank in there? Because like you said, they were the best team at one point last year, and then they were one of the worst teams.
They could start next year without Kyrie and Kevin Durant, potentially.
Yeah. And Ben Simmons.
Well, I'm not even worried about Ben Simmons at this point.
Wow. Could you imagine if they go into next season with Ben Simmons and a bunch of young guys and draft picks?
That would be insane.
Yeah. Crazy.
But Sean Marks would probably have he would lose less hair probably with that roster.
Probably. All right, everyone, want to thank you all for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us here. We know there are a lot of different distractions in the world, so thank you for letting us be your distraction. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe to the channel, and also hit that notification bell so you will be notified when we put out a new video. Our schedule here is getting a little bit more hectic, so our lives will be a little bit more sporadic. So if you do hit that notification bell, you will be notified every time. So thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you all tomorrow, and don't forget to tip your bartender.